Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Thursday. We're at Thursday. I'm going to wait a few minutes for Hybrid Money to come on. And yeah, so, sorry, I got distracted here. So yeah, I'm going to wait for Hybrid Money to come on for a second because I decided to do something that her and I talked about yesterday. So, whew, there she is. Good morning, Hybrid Muddy. So yeah, today I wanted to wait for you to come on because I decided. So here's the thing. Yesterday, Muddy sent me something, and it's something I've seen several times across social media, but I've always been either I share it and then I'm reluctant, or I hope it disappears amidst all the other things I've shared, or I've been reluctant to share it because I feel like, there's so many double-edged swords with this. So anyways, I'm sorry, my bracelets are distracting. So I finally figured out what this meant. This is a double infinity knot. I'm single, so I guess I am committed to myself. So, and of course my Aloha bracelet. I believe Muddy sent me this one. So anyways, sent me the Aloha one. And this came in a box that I used to subscribe to. But anyways. Lots of distractions today because it's like, ooh, you know how I get when I get nervous about something. So anyways, like I said, yesterday, good morning. So yesterday she sent me something. And we talked about it a bit, and then I was like, yeah, this should be a show. And then I thought maybe I'll do it next week because I said we do the affirmators today. But I figured with everything we've been through this week, this is probably what should tie up the week. This is what we should use to tie up the week. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to go through it. And like I said, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but I'm going to try to break it down so it doesn't seem so in your face, But I'm not going to lie. It's something that some people do need to hear. And I don't know who you are. If it hits you between the eyes, then it's probably you. But if it just kind of goes over your head and it's like, yeah, whatever. Good morning, older sibling. So, okay. So again, that's my unofficial disclaimer for this particular subject we're doing today, which again is going to tie up everything we've talked about all week. All right. So, after a certain age, you are no longer the product of your environment or how you were raised. It becomes a personal choice to live the way you do. At some point, blaming the past becomes a distraction from your future. Healing is your responsibility. Growth is your decision. You either take ownership of your life or become a prisoner to excuses. The truth is, no one is coming to save you. It's on you to become the person you were never shown how to be. Okay, so I'm going to break this down really quick. This is one of the reasons why I feel like this is a double-edged sword. When it says the truth is no one is coming to save you, if you have a good support group, there's lots of people that are there to be your net when you fall, okay? If you don't have a good support group, this is really kind of saying, hey, you know what? You've got to take control because you're responsible for this. You are responsible for your healing. You are responsible for you moving forward in everything. And so I want to go through this and kind of break it down, okay? Because part of this I feel like is healing, and the other part I feel like is people who just sit there and go, well, that's how I was raised. So, there was a more famous figure, and I'm not going to name names, but there was a more famous figure who about 15 years ago was caught using the N-word and being completely racist and this, that, and the other. And they never took accountability for their actions. Instead, what they said was, well, that's how I was raised. I'm a product of my environment. Well, person, when you're in your 60s or your late 50s, no. You have had every opportunity to not be that person anymore, to not be that racist bigot, okay? And to blame somebody else because you chose to follow the way they taught you, even though the world has now taught you that what they were thinking and what they were saying was wrong, is your choice. So, there comes a point when people try to say, well, and I'm not talking about trauma. Okay, I'm not talking about people with trauma brain, because we'll get into that in a second. This is kind of the thing that I'm sitting here like, this feels like two messages in one. And I think the person that wrote this was very well meaning. I think the person that wrote this probably felt like, this is what I went through, so I'm going to share this. And I'm sure for a lot of people out there, they're like, yeah, this is exactly how I need to feel. But then there's people, in the middle that are kind of like, well, I kind of am a product of my environment. I have trauma brain. I have this, I have that. But that's the point. And it might feel like it's a little bit harsh, the way they come across on this. Like, just saying at some point you can't keep blaming the past. It's a double-edged sword, because you can't. And yet sometimes it's hard because it's all we know. So I'm going to try to come to you doing this in the most sensitive way possible. Okay. But yeah, like when it comes to, well, I didn't become this, that, or the other because, I didn't have the support that I wanted, or I didn't become this, that, or the other because no one, cheered me on, or because, I get it. I get it. And there's a lot of different things that can lead to trauma brain. And sometimes it's not even trauma brain. Sometimes it's just, maybe there's fear inside of you, and that's why you didn't pursue things. There's a lot of fear inside of me. I was always afraid of rejection and failure. So there's a lot of things I never did in my life, and I'm just sitting there going, what could I have done with my life? But I'm not dead yet. So, there's still an opportunity to pretty much do whatever I want to do, right? Whatever, still figure out what it is that I am probably good at. And so it doesn't aid. And you know what? Sammy and I were talking about this yesterday too. And, and thank you again, Sammy, for all the kind words that she gave me, because, there's a lot of things that I've gone through in my life. And there's a lot of, like the healing journey just felt like it was like forever, and ever and ever and ever. Amen. And it's just kind of like, holy crap. But then I thought about it again. And this is something I bring up every so often. I want people my age, or people older than me, or people even younger than me. I want people across the spectrum of age, including my age and older, to know that you can heal anytime you want. It doesn't have to be, well, I wish I was younger because I would have healed that then. You can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. There are people in their 70s who get so bored at home and being retired, they go back to school. Maybe they'll never practice to be a lawyer, but they graduated as one. Maybe they'll never practice to be a psychologist or a doctor, but they graduated as one. Because it gave them something to do, but it gave them this whole new level of knowledge. And it just, the only person stopping you from doing anything is yourself. The only person stopping you from getting up and doing whatever it is that you want to do is yourself. There are people who, may feel like, well, I'm not able-bodied, and that's okay. I understand that. There are going to be hard days, but there are going to be days when it's okay. And sometimes you just have to start moving to see what happens, and I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not saying anything, because this is how I feel sometimes. I'm sitting here tanking the cranberry juice because I have a kidney thing happening to me right now, and it hurts so much. But I looked up the emotional meaning for it, and it's kind of like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So your body will talk to you. If your body will talk to you, if it feels like there's something you need to do. But yeah, so let's break this down, okay? And I promise you, I'm not trying to offend anybody. And again, I'm really not calling anybody out. I'm just, whatever's coming into my head is what, I'm trying to filter through and say at the same time. And I just want people to know that age doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. If you're dead, okay, there's nothing you can do about that, right? But if you're still alive, then live. Get out there, do stuff. Just experience the world. If you're good at painting, paint. If you're good at drawing, draw. If you're good at writing, write. If you're good at organizing people, then either go find a job where you can organize people, or set up a company on the side. It could be your side hustle, right? And to organize people. There's just, everybody has a talent. Everybody has a talent. And, some of us are still trying to figure it out. Although I think I know what mine is. I just kind of, again, the whole rejection thing just kind of freaks me out. So, but I think, so I'm going to give you a little thing. I love to write. I've been told I'm a pretty decent writer. And I know that my first drafts, as Ernest Hemingway would say, the first draft is always shit. But I build from there. And I did a lot of panels at Comic-Con about, world building and, how to create this, that, and the other, and to keep people interested. And I think one of the things that, really kind of made me realize how much I miss it is when Lola, my hard drive, just froze on me. And so I have all these stories stuck on her until I have to figure out what kind of software is going to work to get it all off. But, excuse me. Oh, sorry. But I realized, it's like, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God. But then I thought, you know what? Maybe this is an opportunity to come at these stories from a different angle, and I told older sibling, I said, yeah, but I said, it's kind of my proof that these are my ideas, because I've been writing them for so long. And she says, that's okay, because they're still there. They're still on there. Thank you, Sammy. And so, so that being said, I just figured maybe I'll just start. Thank you, older sibling. I got 2 bless yous, 1 for each sneeze. So I figured this is something I need to do, but I need to let go of that fear of rejection. I need to let go of that fear of, not belonging. I need to let go of all these other things that just kind of, wig us out and hold us back. One of the most important things I learned on a panel, it was my very last panel that I went to. It was a graphic artists panel, and I am not an artist to save my life. I can squiggle and I can doodle, but and I can just brush stroke things, but yeah, I can't draw. But apparently some of them can't either. However, he says, don't worry about whether or not someone's going to like what you are writing. Just write it. And that's true. Because one of the things I learned early on when I was in writing classes in college before I quit, was that somebody out there will. Somebody out there will. I mean, when Stephen King wrote his first book, he didn't know if someone would like it or not, but look at him now, right? So anyways, again, sorry, I'm rambling. So again, let's do this sentence by sentence. After a certain age, you are no longer the product of your environment or how you were raised. I'm going to say that this is, in my perspective, this is people who blame their past and their environment for everything. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip, and I need you guys to know that even though it looks like rosé, it is literally watered down cranberry juice. So I don't day drink. Well, I do, but not, just kidding. I don't morning drink. But yeah, it is cranberry juice. It's been watered down. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Oh my God. Oh, my kidneys are killing me. But anyways, so after a certain age, you are no longer the product of your environment or how you were raised. I'm going to split this in half. Okay. If you're the kind of person that does stupid things and then you blame your environment, that's kind of your fault. Okay. Because you have the opportunity to realize that some of the things that you were raised in were absolutely wrong and incorrect and not right. And you don't have the right to weaponize that anger and take it out on other people. Now, saying that, I was a hurt person that hurt people. But after a while, you start to realize I may need help. So if you're not out there seeking help, I think it's a good idea that you do, because it is not fair to weaponize your moods and take it out on other people. And I'm coming from a place of having been a person that did that because of my trauma when I was a kid. Now, the environment I was raised in, a whole different thing, right? My trauma was separate from the environment I was raised in because I was raised to know better, to be kind, to be respectful. But when you push down and push down and push down all this anger and all this pain and all this trauma, it's going to come back up like a volcano, and it's not going to be pretty. So you have to decide to heal that. Now, if you're a person that's running around being an asshole racist, that is on you. Because at this point in the world, you should know better. As an adult, you should know better. Maybe even as a kid, you should know better. But I get it. People sometimes have wackadoodle parents, okay? I was very fortunate to not have those. But I have known people who were a product of their environment and said, no, I am not going to be these people. My dad is one of them. I asked my dad, I said, because, I would hear him, just talking about my grandparents every so often. I'm like, how come you're so different? And he said, because I swore that when I got older and if I ever became a parent, I was going to be better. And poof, there you go. I was going to be better. And I asked the question and he answered it honestly. So, he decided, no, I am not a product of that environment. I am going to rewrite that script. In a way, breaking a generational cycle of sorts. So it says it becomes a personal choice to live the way you do. It does become a personal choice to live the way you do. So again, if you're running around being a racist and you're sitting there blaming other people, that's on you. That is legit on you. Now, if you've had trauma brain and you're running around and, it's hard to figure it out, it's because, right here at the bottom, it's on you to become the person you were never shown to be. But that can be hard when you have trauma brain. Okay, so now I'm talking to the people who have had CPTSD, maybe even some version of PTSD. I'm talking to you now because, not in a mean way, but in a sincere way, because I know how hard it can be. I know how hard it can be to feel like you want to fit in with everybody else that seem normal. But we don't know what normal is. We don't know what their lives are like inside of their homes. But on the outside, on the surface, they seem so put together. They seem so, yay, and maybe that's just how they are. Maybe they don't have to worry about anything at home. Maybe they don't have to worry about having trauma brain. But you don't have to wish to be like that. You can find that. Healing is going to hurt. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I also don't want to stop people from going down that road. The reason I'm so honest about how much healing can hurt is because when you get to that point where it feels like you want to quit, that is when you have to stay in the game. That is when you have to tell yourself, no, as much as this stings and as much as this hurts and as much as it's making me cry my eyes out or want to punch a wall or just go down to the gym and punch a punching bag, I can't quit on myself. Because when it hurts the most, when you really start to feel all those emotions and when you really start to feel like, you just want to lay flat on your face like Lilo from Lilo and Stitch and go, I can't do this anymore, and throw on the Elvis album, that's how you know it's working. Because you're not surface healing anymore. You're deep dive healing now. And you're getting into all that stuff and you're doing that spring cleaning, that deep clean on your internal house. You are going in there and you are saying, no, this isn't right. If no one else is going to show me how, the person I could have been, I'm going to show me the person I could have been. And I'm going to become that person. I was angry for a long time that it took me so long to heal. And then I was angry over the fact that I had to heal. Not because I had to heal, but because someone did something to me so horrific that I just shut down for so long. That I was just kind of living a half-life. And then I was angry about that. I was angry like, why did this have to happen to me? Not why does this have to happen to anybody? And then I found other people that asked the same question, and I didn't feel alone anymore. But then I was angry that it happened to them. So it was an ugly cycle. It was an ugly loop, and it was not the kind of loop you want to be on, but it's the kind of loop that even if it's one significant horrific event in your life, it can upend you. It can make you a people pleaser. It can make you the kind of person that just, you're not sure which direction to turn because, you're just either hardcore or you're like sobbing in a corner. There's no middle. And that's basically survival mode. That's being stuck in our own victimhood. And I don't want to use victimhood in an insensitive way. I don't mean it in a mean way. I mean that a lot of times I was stuck there for years and years and years and years, and it was hard. Okay, so let's see. Sammy says, my parents were both raised in the rural South in the 30s. Whoa, I know where that's going. Not the most race-friendly place, and most people were raised, in capital letters, racist, including my dad. My dad learned to do and be better, and we were raised to not be that way. These days, my dad loves his African-American gay son-in-law. Aw, so yeah, you can overcome at least some of your nurturing. See, that is a prime example. And in case you're wondering why she's saying African-American gay son, she's saying it because if her father hadn't overcome his ways, that would be a no-no, and he probably would have disowned his son. And I just learned something new about you, Sammy, and your family. But besides your dad, besides your parents, your brother, or did I know that? I don't think I knew about his husband. But yeah, but see what I'm saying? He chose to be better. He chose to overcome the influence that he was raised under, and for Mr. Sammy's dad, that's huge because that was a pretty wild time, for race relations back in the 30s. And we've all 20s, 30s, we've all seen the stories, we've all watched the movies, right? All the way into the 60s. And the rural South, I wouldn't be surprised if there was still some of that going on now. But Sammy grew up in the South, and she is like a rainbow, so older sibling had grandparents that grew up in the South, and some of the stories that her aunt will tell will be like, I'm sorry, it's like, how is that okay? But it's just kind of they're not bad, they're not bad at all, but it was kind of like, just the off the cuff remarks they make, like, oh hey, let's go get this guy to marry us, well then we can say that we were married by this guy, and he just happens to be an African-American preacher. But it's like, to them it was kind of like a joke because it was the late 20s, early 30s, again, in the South, in the rural South. So, but older sibling didn't grow up that way. Her parents didn't grow up that way. So it just goes to show that you can change if you want to change, and even the relatives changed over time. Her grandma, she loves to tell me some of these stories. It's kind of like, do you think your grandma would have liked me? Because, I'm not exactly white. But I didn't have that great of a relationship with all my grandparents. So, I'm always searching for, just these wonderful stories of people. Yeah, see, her parents and her march. There you go. I didn't know you were still on. It only says one person's on. But anyways, yeah, so thanks for letting me share that, older sibling. But yeah, Barbara and Roy, they marched with Dr. King, and I guess by default, so did older sibling, because she had to go along with the parents. But sibling also marched on her own, and, she fought, if nothing else, Mr. and Mrs. McNair raised a little hellion, and I mean in a good way. This girl would march for everything. She, I would, having known older sibling for so long, and being a part of her family, I see it. She's marched for gay rights. She's marched for equal rights. She's marched for everything, and that's just how she is. She is a fighter for what is right. And as is Sammy, I don't know a lot about Sammy growing up, but I know the kind of person she is when we're talking, when we're and the things that she posts. She's peace and love. These girls are my flower children. Okay. Now, older sibling March, and she wants to be a flower child, but I think there's a bit hippie in her. So, because in case you don't know the difference, the flower children were the peace and love people. And yeah, they did protest, but they did it peacefully. The hippies were a little bit more in your face. And that's fine. It was a good combination, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't around then. So sorry. I know. I'm not I'm not trying to throw age out there, but I wasn't around then. And, but anyways, so let's keep going. At some point, blaming the past becomes a distraction from your future. So here's the thing about healing. I think when we blame our past, it's because we're afraid to move forward. So it's easier to just, be comfortable in this place where we're constantly saying, well, if this didn't happen to me, blah, 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 Sammy says, I've been a flower child since birth, I think. Haven't changed much. You and older sibling. Older sibling turned me into a flower child. Although, in a weird, ironic way, a lot of songs I like from the 60s and part of the 70s were actually anti-war songs. I had no idea. Then older siblings like, you like this song? It's an anti-war song. It's like, well, I don't like war, but I love this song. And so I was kind of like, And then she's like, you're really a flower. She christened me a flower child. So, and I wear it proudly. I do. My dad called me a hippie once, and I was laughing, and I'm all like, no, I'm a flower child. Anyway, he didn't mean it in a mean way, but it was kind of funny because I don't think he expected my reply. I think he expected me to get mad. I'm like, no, I'm a flower child. So, but yeah, anyways, at some point, blaming the past becomes a distraction from your future. Healing is your responsibility. Growth is your decision. You either take ownership of your life or become a prisoner to excuses. I know that sounds harsh. It really, really sounds harsh. But the reason I'm breaking these down is because I don't want it to feel like it's harsh. I made excuses for a very long time on why I couldn't heal, why it was too hard, why I gave up a million times. Healing was like quitting something, like being addicted to something and having to quit it. Like, I don't know, a friend of mine had said she's just, a year in of not smoking. And I don't care. If you want to smoke. I have no problem with that. I'm just using that as something because I know from my father who quit a long time ago, it was a struggle. It was like one after the other attempt until finally he did it for himself and it worked. And I told him, I said, you got to stop trying to do it for us. If you want to quit. If you don't, I don't care. That's your thing. And when he finally decided to do it, he did it for himself. And that's when it worked. And that's what you have to do. When I did the OptiFast thing I talked about the other day, 11 years ago, I did it for my mom. And it didn't work. But now I'm doing this for myself. I'm on this health journey for myself because the older I get, the more I realize, I better take care of my heart. You'd think I would have learned that when I was young, but hey, slow learner. But it's really a choice that you have to make. Because now I'm doing this for myself and it's working. It's slow. It's not happening overnight, but it's working. And that's what healing is about. When you decide to heal, you're not going to make excuses anymore. But when you look back and you realize that you've made excuses for not healing, don't shame yourself. Because the excuses are fear. The excuses are, it is scary moving from this comfort zone. Even if it's an uncomfortable comfort zone, it's familiar. It's something you know. It's something you understand. It's something that, you've grown to just kind of exist in, even if it's not a place where you're happy. And it can be scary moving into a completely different feeling. And the reason I'm really kind of opening up and sharing a lot of, my shortcomings on my journey is because I want you to know that this is, you may not go through what I go through. You may go through it like that and go, yeah, Shelly Marie was wrong. And if you do, I am grateful for that. But for those of you who do struggle, like I struggled, For those of you who find it hard to escape that feeling and move into a feeling that's a better place, right? It's like standing in the middle of a poison ivy bush, and right over there is a nice field of grass where you can just roll around and, itch, just scratch all the ickies, but you're just afraid because it's an open place. It's an open pasture, right? It's freedom. But do we deserve freedom? Absolutely. Can we attain it? Yes. Do we want to? That's up to you. Growth isn't easy. I mean, look at physically growing. We all had growing pains. I mean, those weren't imaginary. Your bones are stretching. Your body is stretching. But emotional growth can be very similar. Emotional growth is going to tell you, hey, this might hurt a little bit, but it's going to be worth it in the end. So, okay. Sammy says she has a whole mix of CD of anti-war songs. An older sibling says, you never listened to the words. I listened to the words. I knew the words. I just didn't understand what they were supposed to mean. I didn't. So this is why I ask older siblings, like, well, what's this supposed to be about? And, and I will. I don't have a problem asking. I mean, I knew the words. I just thought they were pretty songs. You guys got to remember. Okay, I'm going to remind older sibling of this. I did not grow up during the Vietnam War. I grew up after. I mean, I was born, I think, a year or two before the fall and before all the troops were pulled out. So, I mean, I was literally not comprehending a whole lot. I was in toddler era. And, when I got older, because my father did serve there, and I didn't really understand much about the war, but I did get protective of my dad, because, a lot of people don't treat the Vietnam War veterans very kindly. And if you're one of those people, you need to stop it, okay? Because they were fighting somebody else's war. And they were being put into a situation that they probably should have never been put into. But an older sibling, bless her heart, whenever she sees a veteran, she'll be like, oh, thank you for your service. But whenever she sees a Vietnam veteran, she beelines to make sure that they know they are appreciated. And I'm going to sidetrack and share a story. This is a good one. So we were at Disneyland, and we when you don't live far from Disneyland, you go a lot. But we were at Disneyland, and there was a gentleman there, wearing his Vietnam veteran's hat, and his wife was sitting next to him. They're sitting under the tree, and here comes older sibling in her tie-dye I think was it your Peace shirt or your Nova Scotia shirt? I can't remember, but sibling loves her tie-dyes. And so this woman's eyes get big. The guy is just, she literally, sibling is 5 feet away from this woman. And you know how protective I get of my sibling, my older sibling. And so the lady said, what do you want? And I'm starting to bristle. But the guy says, it's okay. Let her say what she wants to say. And she walked up to him and held out her hand. And she just said, I just wanted to thank you for your service. And the woman looked shocked. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, bitch. I'm like, sorry. Hey, when I bristle and I get protective, Sammy said it perfectly. Nobody understood that war, including those fighting it. Agreed. Older sibling says it was the peace sign. Oh yes. So see, these are my two flower children. My two flower children. Them and their tie-dyes. I don't know. I'm not a tie-dye person. I don't know why. I think it's because it's too colorful. I don't know. I love to wear black. I know you don't see me in black very often, but I do love to wear black, and that's probably where that comes from. But I am trying to experiment with colors. So can't walk through life looking like, you're a spy, right? Or you're some kind of ninja. But yeah, so see, it in a way, that's a healing thing. Because, even though I was mad at the wife, I appreciate the fact that she was sticking up for her husband, so kudos to her and kudos to me for sticking up for older sibling. But she surprised them both. And the woman never said anything, but the gentleman said, thank you very much. He's all, I really appreciate that. She's all, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you knew, And I was just like, and then of course, you know, I felt compelled to thank him for his service and tell him my dad was in Vietnam. So, you know, but I love these two. They're having a conversation about how they both love bright colors. Now you see why I love them both. You know, hybrid muddy or muddy twin and older siblings. So when you're an older child, you just pick your own siblings and family. So anyways, going back to this, I know I'm kind of all over the place, you guys, but this is a very hard subject to talk about because I really don't want to offend anybody. And I don't want anyone to think that, oh, well, what's she trying to say just because she healed? No, healing was hard, for me at least. It may not be for you. It may be for someone else. But like I said, I just want you to know that when it starts to hurt the most and when you really feel like you're out of control, that's because it's working. That's because it's working. So don't quit. Don't quit. Right? When the going gets tough, the tough keep going. They always say the tough get going, but to me, get going means they leave. But to me, you know, keep going, keep doing it, keep moving forward, move through it. As hard as it's going to be, move through it. So, and the last part, the truth is no one is coming to save you. It's on you to become the person you were never shown how to be. I don't like that line, no one is coming to save you. I think it's misleading in a way if you're not reading it right. So I'm going to give you my perspective on it. When it says no one is coming to save you, no one can start your healing journey but you. You can have a wonderful support group. You can have a social media presence where you have a wonderful support group. But whatever it is you do, you have to know that you are the one who's in charge of this journey. You are the one who has to say, I am ready to heal. You are the one that says, you know what? I know crappy things happened to me in the past, but I can't keep halting my life because bad things happen to me. If you want to move forward, if you want to do all these things, do it. Do you want to know why I've been single for as long as I've been single? For a very, very long time. One day I will be brave enough once again. I've said it once in an old show, and I'm not going to tell you which one because I honestly can't remember which one. One day I'll be brave enough to tell you how long, because it's so long that I'm afraid that if I put it out there, I'm just going to be like a pariah, because that's my own fear. But one of the reasons, I've been single for as long as I've been is because of that rejection, because of that fear, you know. And I mean, I've spent the last decade really kind of diving into the deep end of trying to heal. But it's really only been in the last 3 years that I think I've really put the effort in. You know, like, okay, well, I'm healed. Why is it no? Because there was always something else that came up. Oh yeah, see, here you go. Sammy says it perfectly. Like going to AA. You can go to a million meetings and have the group support, but it's up to you to put down the drink. Exactly. That's what they're saying here, that no one is coming to save you. You have to make that choice. You have to make the choice. You have to make the choice to quit whatever it is you're quitting. You have to make the choice to heal whatever it is that needs to be healed. And healing is like layers. It's like an onion. You know, you think, oh God, I thought I healed this and here it is again. But look at how you're dealing with it. Because there were certain things in my life, I thought I healed my trauma 1,000,000 times over. And I'm sitting there going, again? But then I remember one time I said that just like that. And I started giggling and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I did heal it because it wasn't funny. But the fact that I'm sitting here going, dude, I have to go through this again? What the hell? You know, and then I realized, oh, maybe it was just trying to show me how far I've come. And that's what it does. Healing shows you how far you've come. If the same thing keeps coming up, it's telling you it either needs to be healed or it's showing you how the distance that you've come. It's showing you how far you've made it on your healing journey. So don't brush it away. Don't discount it. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm looking at this again for the 15th millionth time. What do I see? And if it still hurts or brings up some raw emotion, then it still needs to be healed. Now, It doesn't mean that the trauma that you suffered when you were young or older or whatever age you're at, it doesn't mean that whatever trauma you suffered isn't going to hurt from time to time. I talked about this yesterday, when I was going to bed the other night, and I had like all these memories just flooding back, and they hurt. They hurt, and they made me very emotional. And I thought, you know what? No, because I had the tools. But that doesn't mean it didn't sting. That doesn't mean I didn't have that ick feeling for a second. It meant that, no, you know what? Right now, I'm trying to go to sleep, and I am not going to let this bombard my thoughts. Because, I healed that. And it's not always going to be that easy as just saying, I healed that. It's not. But when you have the tools, when you teach yourself the tools, when you go on that healing journey and start picking and choosing what works for you, then you're going to find your way through. And those moments where every single time that memory would come up and it would just upend you and make you cry or whatever, you're going to realize, hey, today it's not, tomorrow it might. But you're going to learn that it is not you, it's something that happened to you. Older sibling says there are also groups for adult children of alcoholics. That's a huge group that is very overlooked. The other one that's very overlooked, maybe sibling, you can remind me, it's like they do have the adult children of alcoholics group, which is a very good group, because there are a lot of there are a lot of traumas that can come out of being raised by a substance abuse parent or a substance using parent for the child. But there's also there's a group for like family or people who know recovering alcoholics or substance abuse users, or people who are still dealing with families or with family members or who are struggling with it. So I can't remember the name of that group, and I'm sorry, but it is like I can't remember, but it's also associated with that. So if you are one of those people, then look it up. If you are a person who struggles with substance abuse, do what you can to get the help. Because a lot of times, I'm actually glad that this came up, because a lot of people who struggle with substance abuse, it's not always just because, this, that, or the other, my circumstances. A lot of times it's how they numb the pain. A lot of times it's how people who have been through things that I've been through will numb the pain or try to forget. And I, like I said, I was very lucky to have the parents I had, because they gave me that safe space outside of my trauma, which I believe kept me from being a user statistic. However, I did become addicted to food because I didn't learn how to deal with my emotions, and I needed something to feed it. But, I know some people will say food's not the same as alcohol. You know what? Emotional eating is a real thing. So if somebody says, yeah, I'm an emotional eater, don't discount them. If I'm an overeater, there is an Overeaters Anonymous. Don't discount that, because it's not drugs or alcohol, but it is something that they're using. And in a lot of ways, it can be hard because you can't quit food. You would like to, but you can't. You just have to figure out new patterns, just like anybody else struggling with any kind of substance abuse. So, my heart goes out to those people. And I don't mean those people like those people. No, my heart goes out to all those people that do struggle with all these things, the emotional eating, the alcoholism, the drug use, all those things, because you have to wonder, what got them there. And, older sibling and I, older sibling, you might remember, we watched this one show about the opioid crisis. It was a really good show with, I can't think of his name. Michael Keaton? Was it Michael Keaton, Laura? But yeah, it was that was a spiral and a half. I mean, because here's the thing. Some of them didn't even suffer trauma. it just became, like they had an injury and it was something that was pushed and it became an addiction. And then it became something they couldn't leave behind because, wow, that euphoric feeling, right? Oh, there you go. Al-Anon. Thank you, Sammy. Al-Anon. That's the one. Al-Anon is it's a group, it's an anonymous group for people with loved ones or family members who are struggling with substance abuse. So, and that's a place for them to come together and just kind of have their own release, so that they can help their person. And it's not just people who are struggling with substance abuse. It's also people who are struggling with loved ones who are going through AA, because it's not easy for them either. I mean, it's, quitting substances, is that's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope. I know older sibling wouldn't mind me sharing about the fact that her mom was an alcoholic. By the time I met her, she was in, I don't know, what do you call it? I want to say remission, but it's not, I guess, remission. She was in sober. She was sober. There you go. That's the word. Thank you, older sibling. I think you sent it to me, mentally. But yeah, Mom Barbara was sober. And it's funny because people I've met that knew her when she was an alcoholic were so surprised, like, you called her mom? I always called her like Mrs. So-and-so. And it's like, yeah, she told me I could call her mom. And she was like a second mom to me. And I loved her. I loved her to the very core of her being. But she was never shy. She shared her own issues. Recovery. That's the word. Thank you, older sibling. She was in recovery at that point and living a sober life. So I know that this subject feels like it went all over the place, but I'm glad that it went in the directions it did, because I think, especially the substance abuse part, because there are a lot of people who struggle with trauma, who have struggled with dependency. And I'm trying to choose my words sensitively, because I don't want anyone to feel ashamed. Maybe someone watches this and they're struggling with these things right now, and I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. But I will say this. I do hope that you seek out the help that you need. I do hope that you get the help that you need. And for all of you who are my age, I'm 52, okay? Straight out. I won't tell you how long I've been single, but I'll tell you how old I am. But all right. You know what? All right. I'm going to ask the girls. Is it something I should be honest about right now in this show about how long I've been single, so people understand how trauma can upend you and how we can move forward? And don't worry. I mean, if you say you don't know me and you're like, but I really need to know this. I mean, not from like I'm curious so I can make fun of you, but I mean a genuine place of, is it something that I should share? Because I feel like it is, but I'm having a hard time saying it. And I can give you the date, of when I became single. I mean, I can hands down give you the date. Dope Sick. That was it. That was the show. Okay. And I think it was on Apple Plus. Was it on Apple Plus? I don't remember. I think it was on Apple Plus. But if it was, just look for Dope Sick. It was DOPE SICK, one word. And it's with Michael Keaton. So, and I think he won a couple of awards for that too. But yeah, come on, girls. Do you, Sibling says it's up to you. We're not here to judge. I need an answer. I need a yes or no. I need someone to push me off the ledge and say, do it. Okay. So Sammy says, do what feels comfortable to you, but I think it might help others. There are a lot of us in the same boat. I have been single since March 5th, 2000. March 5th, 2000. That's over 25 years ago. That's right. 25 years, almost 25 years and a half. I know. And I don't mean single like out there dating and out there, doing the deeds. No, none of it. None of it. I'm just going to say this straight out, since we've already dove into this. Every orgasm I've ever had since then, I've been responsible for. So see, isn't that funny? I have no shame saying that, but I have shame of telling you how long I've been single. Um, oh, okay. Older sibling says it's now on Hulu, the show Dope Sick. So thank you, Sammy, and an older sibling for the encouragement. But no, seriously, that's how long I've been single. And I had said when I broke up with the last boyfriend, because it was a very bad relationship. It was a good relationship, probably the most healthy relationship I'd had, but it was very painful, and in its own way, when I look back on it, kind of toxic on both of our parts. I can't put all the blame on him. He was well, it's not my place because people know who it is, but well, some people know who it is, but yeah, there was a lot that I just couldn't handle and deal with anymore, and I was having my own struggles and my own traumas, and so, of course, on March 6th, I said, "Dear God, please let the next person be the one." I did not realize that there may not be a next person because I've been single for 5,000 years. But yeah, no, I feel kind of better that I've said it. Yes, it has been a long time. I am basically a nun without a church. Okay. That's what I tell people. They're all, "You've been single how long?" I'm like, I am a nun without a church, and not intentionally, or celibate, but not by choice. Okay, so Sammy says, "But trust me, she laughed, I know. "But trust me, there are a lot of us who are single and have been for a while, and I have learned to be good with it, but I think that comes with age." I've recently learned to be good with it. I'm not going to lie, I would like to find the one, no pressure, whoever you are out there. But yeah, I mean, I would like to find the one, but I think I would approach it so much differently now, because people always tell me, if you ever meet, this is funny. Somebody said this to me, "Well, now that you're older, would you get married?" And I'm like, I don't know. I've only been engaged once in my life. And I was just like, well, they're all, what if they ask, to get married? I'm like, they can plan it, because I don't care anymore. I don't care about the big fluffy dress. I don't care about the long aisle so everyone can, admire me. I don't care. I don't care. At this point in my life, I just want to find somebody that I can coexist with peacefully. I mean, I know that in relationships, there are moments that become tense. I'm not stupid, but I'm also in a place now where I think I can handle things better. Where I'm not as codependent either, or I'm not so, like clingy. And I admit I was clingy, because I was always afraid of losing that relationship. But also I'm in a place now where I don't equate sex with love, because that was part of my trauma brain. And, I've become okay. I'm not going to lie. I told you every orgasm I've ever had since the breakup I've been responsible for. And I'm going to tell you, nobody does it better than me. In every relationship I've been in, no one has done it better than me. And you're probably sitting there like, why are you sharing all of this? You know why? Because sometimes we just have to take care of ourselves. And I'm not going to wait, or, I'm not the kind of person that can just go out there and just sleep with someone. I'm not. I have to have a connection or a relationship with someone before I will become intimate. And that's just me. I don't judge anyone who isn't like that. That's just me. That's how I am. And I think there's actually a flag for that. And I think there's actually a term for that. And I don't know what it is. So I just take care of my own needs. And the reason I am telling you that I take care of my own needs is because I don't want people out there to think that there's anything shameful about that. There isn't. It's fantastic. I mean, we're humans. We have needs. We have desires. And if no one's there to meet those desires, and you're not the kind of person that wants to go out there and, seek it out, then you got to take care of yourself. So Sammy says, "I'm such an INFJ that I think I'm afraid of losing my me time." Oh, Sammy says, me too, Muddy. I'm that way too, Muddy. Yeah, totes. I don't even know what you're referring to, but yeah, totes, you know. You got to do what you got to do. And yeah, is it TMI? Yeah, it is. And I'm sorry that I went in that direction without any warning. But at the same time, there was a part of me because of my own trauma that I was a bit ashamed of that. And I'm not ashamed of it anymore, as you can tell. As you can tell, I'm more ashamed of how long I've been single than the fact that I can take care of my own needs. But it's a natural human thing. Don't be ashamed of it, you know. And I really didn't discover any of that until my 40th birthday. And I'm gonna throw older sibling in there. Older siblings like, what? You don't own any of these things? And I'm like, no. So with Sissy Joe in the room, who was just losing her mind, going like, oh my God, older sibling helped me figure out what I needed, you know, because she's like, yeah, let's do this. You know, she's an older sibling used to throw naughty parties, and they were the best. They were, I think that's where I really started accepting the fact that, you know what, we are all sexual human beings and it's okay. You know, but Sissy Joe is just, she was like outside of her body while we were talking about, because I was laughing so hard, you know, and like I would be like, older sibling, this is like a show for another day. This is a show for another day. But it was just funny. But you know what? This is why you have siblings. This is why you have sisters who, and best friends, you know, who are like your sisters, to just say, it's okay. It's okay. You should not have any shame at all. Okay, so there you go. That is your perspective for today. Wow, I did not see it going in that direction. But you know what? It's okay. Everything happens for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. I am in thriving mode now. It may not seem like it sometimes in my own life, but I am in thriving mode now. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't want to be afraid of anything anymore. I don't want to be afraid of life anymore. I don't want to be afraid of, you know, jumping into a relationship with somebody and then sitting there going, is it going to end? Is it going to end? No, I've learned this far along. One of the tools I picked up, because that was always one of my biggest fears, is like the minute I jump into a relationship that, you know, I've been cheated on before, twice. And so it was either, am I going to be cheated on, or are they going to leave me? You know, and, Sammy, I didn't see it going in that direction either. Yeah, nope, that kind of surprised me. But I know that I'd be different now, because you know, relationships are like life. I've had a lot of people come to me and ask me what should they do, and I think part of it is, even though I'm single, I think a lot of it is, it's an outside perspective. You know, and being single affords you the advantage of being able to see both sides. And so I've been able to help people in their relationships, surprisingly, since I am single. But, you know, like I said, because you're able to look at both sides, you know, and you're able to just say, hey, do you want me to tell you what you need to hear, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? You know, and I let them choose. So it's up to them. But anyways, yeah, so there you go. You know way more about me than you probably should. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here Monday. Whoa, it'll be August. 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public. Anybody can watch on the Aloha Perspective and under Shelley Marie Lucas. And you can find me across the social media board. Sammy, older sibling, or hybrid Muddy and older sibling. Thank you both so much for popping on. Thank you for your insight and your input. I appreciate all of that. And yeah, I'll see everybody on Monday. Have a great day.